Hey, good to see you.
Good. Sorry, I don't know. I guess something to do with the link or whatever. But sorry, I was like left you hanging like that.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Don't worry about it. We've got a, Zoom is
We
such
build
a
off
mess
of each
sometimes.
other, so it's like, all right, we'll just talk.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of
For a
course.
little bit, I was on the Facebook thing trying to figure it out. So, and I agree. Prince's money should go somewhere else.
Right? Yeah, it just seems
Yes.
weird. I don't know. Especially him. Like of all people, is such a perfectionist. Wanted so much control over his work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. The posthumous thing is weird always. It just is like, I don't know.
There's no way it can't. It will not seem opportunistic. What? Okay.
Thank you. But yeah, like you want to hear the songs, but it just kind of makes it bittersweet. Like,
yeah, and you'll like never even know like exactly how they wanted it, or there's a lot to it, a lot to unpack.
but yeah, well.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Zuli. This is Will. I'm Max. Just so you guys, I don't know if we fully introduced ourselves there. This is our first live stream that we're doing for GroundSounds here. So this is all a little bit new to us right now too. We usually have a bit more of a chill atmosphere on the interviews, but you're live.
First one, yeah.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Will's got some questions for you. We like to do a little kind of icebreaker at the beginning and just run through a bunch of just very random kind of questions.
A little fun question.
Yeah. So, Will, why don't you kick that off?
All right. So, first things first. These questions are usually one-word answers, like one or other, this or the other. Like one question is, creamy or crunchy peanut butter? Yeah. Creamy. See, I know Farming too.
Are you a Mac or PC person?
Yeah.
I'm a Mac.
All right. What's your favorite season of the year?
Spring.
Spring. Yeah.
Who's your favorite artist?
Ooh, that's a tougher one.
Tough one.
Is it? Okay. How about since we were just talking about them, Prince or Michael Jackson?
Michael Jackson.
Okay.
Oh.
I know, that's
Controversial. Controversial.
Yeah, that's a hard one, but I don't know. That's like just as hard as the favorite artist.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Jelly or jam?
Jelly.
Okay. If you had one superpower, what would you have?
Teleportation seems practical.
I agree. When you're on a plane, would you prefer an aisle seat or a window seat? Aisle. That's interesting. Cause I
Fascinating. Fascinating. I gotta say.
absolutely fascinating. What is one job that you wish that you would never do again?
That's a good one.
Telemarketer.
Ooh, damn.
Ooh.
What was that like? Who would you work for?
Well, it was it wasn't like some deadbeat company or whatever, but it was like for when I was in college, I did it, and it was like the person who'd like call the alumni and
Beg for
ask
money.
donations.
Yeah.
That was rough. Oh my god, it was terrible.
Yeah, you're basically like.
It's like, hey, I know you gave the school like X amount of money, but like, are you down to give more?
More?
Yeah. Why don't
You know, whatever is left in
I know
your
we just
pocket.
put you in
throw it out there.
devastating debt, but could you keep doing that? Yeah.
That one was very uncomfortable.
What would your coffee order at Starbucks be?
I'm actually a big matcha guy, but lately it's been I like a white mocha or something, a little sweet. I try to not drink coffee too much, but when I do, it's like spice it up a little, make it a little.
Yeah, makes sense.
Sweet.
So we got actually some new questions based off from our previous interviews. So I just wanted to kind of see how this question goes. What is your ideal date?
I think my ideal date is something mundane and like simple. Like one of my favorite dates I've ever been on is like we just went to the grocery store.
Oh, that's nice. That's cute.
Went shopping and stuff and like got things like that. So something like that I feel like is like you get better conversation as opposed to like a more pressure-y kind of situation.
Yeah, you don't want to make it a big event or anything.
Oh, yeah.
You want to give it room to breathe.
You know, it depends on like who and when and the circumstance, but I feel like something like simple like that is like, or like I don't know, I've seen movies like you just like ride the bus with someone or something like that.
Yeah.
Something simple.
Yeah,
I
and
can't
some
do movies.
Yeah, that's like an indie A24 movie or some shit.
Oh, 100%.
You're definitely meeting like a manic pixie dream girl on the bus or something. You know what I mean?
We also have so with this, I think we're pretty good on this.
Yeah.
You want to add a question onto the list for us to ask like in the future?
Oh man, you guys are good at like putting on the spot. So a question to ask another artist or anyone who comes on the show.
Just a general.
Or like,
question.
maybe a question that you like being asked in an interview or something like that. You know?
What is it? Let me think. I think something I like to be asked about is I don't know. I like giving context of songs sometimes, depending on what it is. But I think it could be nice to just like ask, like, fuck. It's hard to curse.
No, you're totally fine. You're fine.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe just ask them like.
How about
What's going on with the or like. I don't know. I guess the origin story is the most interesting part of anything, right? So
Yes.
maybe just like where the inspiration for their next thing that came from, like in terms of like a ground level, like personal, rather than like any sort of like metaphorical or like other.
For sure.
kind
Could-
of way
That's
of
a
song.
perfect segue, honestly, into
Alright,
asking
cool.
that question to you, really, because that's on the
actually a
list.
question.
That's number one right there.
perfect.
about your music?
Yeah, I want to hear about it. So, like, on a musical level and on a more, I don't know, philosophical, personal level, where did the inspiration for "Stop It, God" and "Blue Sky" come from overall? Because we haven't really talked about the album yet, but the new album is "Stop It, God," and let's hear about where it came from, I guess.
Totally. I think a big thing for the album for me is I kind of like consider it like my going through it kind of album in a way, where it was just like a really difficult time balancing life and like your personal relationship as well as your like goals and things you're trying to do on your own. And I think on top of that, in a normal human everyday kind of way, like technology is now such a big part of that, and that kind of adding onto it and just kind of really like skewing your perception of like what you want and like what you're presenting to people and like everything kind of like almost like the idea of like always needing to be like on so to speak, or like needing to be relevant constantly in a way that feels like a little less genuine sometimes, depending on like who you are and what you're putting out.
Yeah.
That was a big part of at least like me exploring the songs and what I wanted to talk about on the album. And then Blue Sky kind of tied into that is just like I kind of like consider it like that breaking point of like coming to that realization and like realizing like you are who you are, and like that's not always going to necessarily be the same to everyone. Like everyone has their own opinion and perception and things like that, but just like kind of like accepting that at a base level. And I think just like the title of the album and everything talking about is kind of like about like accepting and kind of like taking yourself off a pedestal and kind of just trying to be more rather than considering like what other people think.
Right. Do the thing instead of project yourself doing the thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's really cool. I like to hear that. How would you say that you personally have broken out of that? Like how did you come to a point to the breaking point to get out of that?
It's kind of cliche and corny, but like it comes up so much because just letting go is such a hard thing, and like I feel like for me it's like at least during this time I was there was a lot to prove, and I was like working with a lot of people that were like unsure of like the music and what I was doing because I was changing so much, and like my style and things were kind of evolving. And when you're in that kind of like really creative space where you're like really going for it and like constantly making and whatnot, it's easy to like go more towards on the serious side and like really get like enveloped in that, where it's like now it's like I feel like through the act of releasing this music and whatnot, it's almost kind of like allowing me to take a step back and be like, okay, like I want to enjoy myself more than just like sweat every little thing of like my brand or like what the music is, like how people are going to interpret the music and the visuals and this and that. So yeah, that aspect of just taking deep breaths and just like letting it all out.
That's cool. Yeah, it's really hard to do that in a social media age too. Like that's a great point.
Yeah, right. Because like it lives forever. Like I like struggle with that sometimes, where it's just like, all right, should I post this? But like it'll be there. Like,
Yeah.
It's like for me, like growing up, it was like I don't know. It felt like anything on the computer. It's like, yeah, I can put whatever on there. Like, it's fine. It's all good. Like, no one like thought about it like that necessarily. At least when you're a kid.
That's so funny.
To me, it's like there's more anxiety sometimes.
Oh, for sure.
It's like once it's out there forever.
Yeah, we're more aware. We know more now. Although I gotta say, my parents scared the shit out of me as a kid, and I would not post anything that was even remotely like. I think they're like you're gonna lose your job in the future if you post that. You know, like
anything about your opinion.
Don't post beer. Don't post.
Feel.
Yeah.
See, that's good. I feel like most parents just like didn't understand it and probably were just like, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And then you run for Congress someday, and all your tweets get pulled up.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we're looking out for you.
On this day, you said that you didn't like Nike shoes. Now you lose your endorsement to Nike. Like,
Yep, there you go.
oh my God! I said that 5 years ago before I even became them.
So this album and Blue Sky in particular, it's got a really it's got a bit more of a chill sound than your last album from the songs that we've been hearing. A bit more relaxed, at least. Do you feel like that came from your like emotional state over the last year or so, or was that just you wanting to explore a different like sound for yourself?
I think it was a combination of a lot of things. At least for me, like I came from the world of like, you know, I was like playing a lot in bands and in Brooklyn and like that whole DIY scene. That was like a big part of like my coming up. And I think with like the stuff I was originally doing, as much as like I was always going for, you know, something that kind of like paid homage to the classics and things like that. You know, I was all about like the live performance and like everything. I wanted everything to translate like the most like high energy way possible, and like, you know, thinking about like the ducks and dives of the music and like how that's gonna like really translate. And once I did it and I felt like, wow, I accomplished it, it was cool, and the live set was great and everything, I was feeling like the music was like missing a little bit of like my soul, and like, or like not so much like I feel like the songs like talk about like my like, you know, what I was going through and emotions and all of that, but like at least for me it was like, cool, I did this one thing and now I feel like, you know, I want to like dig deeper and I want to dig in more. And I also kind of came to the terms or realization that it's just like, you know, it was like that is what I knew and I was like normal with, but it's like, wow, I don't like listen to that kind of music like as much as like I even realized. Like I'm much more like I listen a lot more like pop music and like, you know, R&B music and like things like that. So that was kind of like a realization where I was like, all right, let me try something different. And then as well on top of that, I wanted to kind of like, I was more interested and focused in what the album sounded like on a listening basis, as well as just like, you know, really making sure that like I'm saying what I want to say, and like that being the main focus, as opposed to you know, oh, is this part going to be like a huge climax for the show or whatever? So
yeah, for sure, that makes sense. I was just talking to Will earlier on this stream about Zubastank and how much I love that song and how much I feel like
wait, which song? I'm sorry.
I might be mispronouncing. Is it Zubastank, right? No, my God. Am I literally? Holy shit! I'm mixing up the band Hoobastank with your song and your song.
Like, Hoobastank song?
Oh no.
The most embarrassing band name of all time. I'm very, very sorry, Cooley. Zuli. Jesus Christ! All right, all over the place now. But I was just talking about how that song has such an amazing build to it in the middle, and how it really just like takes off in the middle. And I love that. But I also like the idea that you wanted to be more focused on your writing and I don't know, getting the right tone than having perfect musical moments or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and you know, it's like, it's funny too, because it's like I think it's a balance, and like even with this stuff now and like releasing and stuff, like I'm almost finding like, you know, I think I'm like a all-in kind of person where it's like I like really go head first, and now it's like, okay, I did that, and it's like, all right, so now how I could like, let me like incorporate a little bit of both and like a little bit of this, of like this new stuff I've been like inspired by and stuff. So, you know, I don't think anything is like right or wrong, or it's black and white and anything like that, but I think this whole thing is just about like, you know, getting closer to like a true self, so to speak, not to get too philosophical. But yeah, so like, you know, again, it's all of it is kind of just like a part of who I am, and it just, you know, as it grows, it's just gonna like keep getting closer and closer to what that's gonna like be interpreted as at that time.
That's cool. That's exciting.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, you had a question, I think.
Yeah, like, so like, my thing is like, like you said, with the origin story, it's one of the most interesting details about like artists and people. What is your origin story? What started you off with your quest on being a music artist?
I think I gotta give a lot to I mean, if we're going like full origin beginning, a lot goes to my parents for sure. I mean, my mom is a singer, and she performed for years and years and was, on the road and doing all that. And she was a singer, but she didn't know like theory, or she didn't know how to play any instruments and things like that. And that was something at a really young age she instilled in me. And she was like, we have to get you lessons and this and that. So I started playing piano at like the age of like 5. And like, kept that going. But then also on the other hand, my dad was like a big fan of music. He wasn't a musician himself, but he was the one who was like showing me like Nirvana and The Clash and all the classics and all
Yeah.
and stuff like
He's
that.
like, I'll give you some real music here.
Yeah. Well, my mom was a country singer too.
Okay.
Oh, very cool.
It was like kind of like, so I grew up with all of that, but then like once I was learning more about the rock stuff, I was like, oh, this is a little cooler. And then, everything kind of snowballed from there. But it's funny too because, it came naturally to a degree, but, for a long time I was playing music, but I had like not too much interest in it in a way that like felt like, I don't know, it just felt like a chore kind of like sometimes, or like something that's just like, oh, this is like something my mom really wants me to do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really until I started like discovering my own taste of music and things that I liked in high school where it was like, wow, like this is like really, really cool. And like, it gave me like an avenue to kind of apply everything that I had been learning up until that point, and then it became like a no-brainer.
That's when it clicks.
I fell in love with.
It's like, this is what I'm gonna do from here on out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I think like if I didn't have that aha moment myself, it maybe wouldn't have necessarily translated. So it's interesting how you can like push something on somebody, and it's not they kind of have to find it for themselves in a way.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
As someone that bailed out on piano lessons young, and then also bailed out on guitar lessons later in life, I fully realized that. And now I like making music, but it took that connection, like it took that like, oh, this thing that I like, and the me working on really hard on this can come together, and actually like I could be making this stuff. I don't know. I'm losing my words here, but like I completely feel that.
When it's the motivation. So if you don't keep up with it, then it just kind of fades away. And it's like, it's like any other kind of day when you push off something. It's like, oh, I'll do it later. Oh, I'll work on it later. I'll think about it and focus about it later. And after a while, like later never comes. As long as you keep up with it, there's nothing you can do about it. Like
totally. And the irony though is like what you're saying though is like I was probably like in some ways lacking motivation, at least on a like super serious. But if I wasn't being pushed, like I wouldn't have necessarily had the skills to do it later. So
Exactly.
to me, I kind of just look at it as like I feel like playing the piano is like a life skill that like everyone at least should like maybe like dabble with, and like depending on like how it goes, they can kind of see it from there. But I don't know.
Makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right, I want to get back to the album a bit. Your upcoming album, like we said already, is called "Stop It, God," and on the track "Blue Skies," we've been talking about a bit here. You say, you asked to stop being sold blue skies, and the album is called "Stop It, God." So, who lied to you? Who hurt you? Who lied to you?
who hurt you, man?
I mean, obviously, we were talking about it, it's social media and stuff like that, but I don't know. I would love to hear about like how that fits into the greater narrative of the album.
I think it's a lot. I mean, I think with the title "Stop It, God," I'm talking to myself personally, and like I think that ties to what we were just saying. How it's just like I think it's really easy to like feel like you're so important when you're constantly like looking on here all the time, and this and that, and like again trying to like break that narrative, and like I think a big part of the album is like talking about the side of your ego that people don't really talk about too much. The one that can like, it's a mix between the two. The one that makes you feel like you're a god, so to speak, but then the one that,
that makes you
human.
human.
A ball and makes you feel like total shit. And I feel like the album is constantly riding that line almost, and just trying to denounce it in general. But it's a lot too. I mean, like that whole period of time is like I was saying earlier. I was kind of lost in a sense where I was like very confident in what I wanted to do musically, but I was in a really bad relationship with some of the people on the team and like the business side of the people who were working with me. And that was also kind of driving that narrative where it was just like I was constantly feeling like I'm right, you're wrong, and like really like holding a lot of like anger and things like that about it. And like while it ended up not working out and like, you know, it was a whole battle in of itself. We don't need to really go into that. But you know, I think again just like coming to that realization of like, you know, I think for me I needed to go with my gut, which I feel like is like realistically all we have in this life. It's like you have to just like go with your instinct. And I did that, and I, you know, I stuck to my guns, did what I had to do, and then through that kind of like humbled me a little bit to the whole process of it and being like, okay, like, you know, everything is a two-way street. I know I always say I'm a beginner. I don't know anything. Like I just like try to do my best and show up every day. And
it's a great attitude.
I think that Blue Sky talks all about that and then translates into everything else.
Every day is a learning process. Like every day you learn something new. Someone that you know or meet knows something that you don't. So you can always educate yourself.
Yeah, Zuli's educating us right now.
Oh yeah.
How did you break through that that anger, feeling like you were you know, hitting a wall with people that you're working with and stuff, and break through your own feeling of like, oh, I'm right, you're wrong? Because that's tough to collaborate in that type of zone. But
well, I think at least I mean, you know, it kind of came to the point where I was like, you know, trying to play ball, and again, this is like goes to the part where it's like, okay, like if they don't think this song is the best, like I'm gonna write the best song I can, or like this and that, and that's where I gets to that point where it's like the serious side, where it's like, okay, it felt like it was feeling like work. It wasn't feeling like, you know, for a while it was like, all right, well, I just have to try to make something without necessarily like knowing what I'm trying to say on it.
Letting it flow naturally, yeah.
Exactly, which was not good. So, you know, eventually it just was kind of the point where that anger kind of wasn't like right at the bat. It was almost like, all right, well, it was kind of like a natural thing, and then eventually it kind of just like, you know, all right, 2 years in the hole, like I can't do this anymore. I have to move on, this and that. And as much as like, you know, that obviously was like a big thing that, you know, affected me and affected a lot of the music, I do feel like though it's not necessarily the principal thing about what the album is. You know, I like at least for songs at least to kind of have an emotional openness about them where like, you know, I think I'm more so like addressing the feeling rather than the specifics of any situation and things like that.
That's cool.
And,
Yeah.
You know,
No, for sure. The emotions behind it versus the details of it or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and then, you know, I think it's a balance too. Like I feel like detail can really like paint a great picture for somebody.
Of course.
But to me, I found nothing interesting about like the classic music business crushing. I don't know. That narrative is like not interesting to me at all. So it was like, you know, I'd rather get more to the root of like the personal as opposed to, you know, the objective or whatever.
No, makes sense. Will, did you have another question?
Yeah, I got another one. So about the album, what would you say, without giving too much detail? I know it's going to be hard to choose, but what would you say is your favorite song of the album so far? It doesn't have to be already released. It could be one that, you know, you could say and get our viewers to be like, okay, I gotta listen to this one because this is something that hit you a little bit harder than the other ones.
That's a tough one. Right now, actually, I really love the opening track to the album. It's called Out of the Blue.
Out of the Blue?
And I'm really excited about that one. Just because, I don't know, I feel like it's like it was a new territory in a way, and I really love how the production and the sonic came out to it. And I feel like it also just feels like it encompasses everything that I'm talking about right now into one. And I'm really excited to hear it. But out of the ones that are out, I think to me, How to Feel still feels like my favorite, just in terms of like casual listen.
Will's been hyping up that song.
Oh man, I was like, this song is definitely getting me here, man. Man, I love it. Yeah, like I was telling him, like, I had a friend over last night, and like we were listening to some of your songs, and I played How You Feel, and she was like, tell him I love this song. She was like, I've never heard of him before, but now he's got a listener. I was like, great, good.
Oh, amazing! You're doing it. You're doing the job.
Oh,
Thank you
yeah.
so much, brother. I appreciate it.
Spread it around. Like, it's just like, hey, this guy, because with the question, it was with the start of the song, the album. I feel like that's very crucial, because that's what's going to kick it off. That's what
Sets the tone. Sets the tone.
Especially with it being a new sound that you're trying out, like compared to how the last album was.
Yeah. I got a question, Zuli. How would you define your genre exactly? Because we were talking about this earlier, and I feel like you definitely blend a lot of genres together. And genres are a completely batshit crazy thing half the time. I feel like it's just like you just throw words together and it means something. But if you were to describe your own music and you had to use a genre or subgenre,
Yeah, I think for me, I think the easiest way, and I think the thing that I recognize in myself, and that is the through line through it all, is I think I just am I love melody. That's my first love, and I think that everything is whether it's harsher or more chill or more this or more that. I think everything to a degree has a pop sensibility to it. Even if it gets a little bit obtuse or weird at points. So I always just at this point I'm just yeah, it's pop, indie pop, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. It's got some strong R&B flair to it though. I will say as well.
That's
very groovy.
There's obviously the R&B, even with one of the singles that came out, You're Mistaken, that was in between the two albums. But yeah, I don't know, it kind of translates. Also, this goes back, you were saying, a favorite artist. I love the 1975. And a quote that Maddie once said that I feel just resonates all the time, and it's the reason why I love them, and I love Brockhampton, for example, is back in the earlier days of the 60s, 70s, 80s, however long.
Sure.
It's people were a little bit more angular about what they listened to. It's oh, I listen to this, or I listen to this. Where it's I feel in today, in the modern time or whatever, I don't listen to just one type of music.
Oh no, yeah.
I don't think you guys do.
No.
Nobody does. So it's why would we, why would anybody only make one type of music necessarily? I don't think that necessarily means that like I said, there can't be any through line, or there can't be any sort of thing that ties a project together.
Of course.
I don't think anything should be a free for all.
Of course. Yeah.
I see no reason in that kind of restriction, and at least for me, it was I feel when I make an album, it's cool, what did I do that was good, what did I do that was not so good, and how can I improve on that, and what can I take on differently, and that's what's exciting. Keeping it exciting is the main thing. So
no, I completely agree. I think that labels oftentimes just ultimately put it in a box and restrict the music. But it's interesting to hear you describe it yourself, though. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, it's tough, and obviously it's a mixed bag too, because it's important to have backing and money and things like that. Obviously that helps keep things moving along, but
a little bit.
And that's a whole other conversation about where the industry's heading, because I feel there is a lot of power right now with just the internet and licensing as opposed to owning masters and things.
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah, we were just talking about.
It's a good time right now. I think there's going to be a lot of people taking a lot of cool risks.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of people like to talk about Spotify and the streaming era and how little artists are getting paid for streaming, which is a real thing and is definitely an issue. But it is interesting how much even though the music is now cheaper to access, it has given such an incredible freedom to artists that they can now go around studios. They are not beholden to a giant industry that they have to get into. You yourself, you're on an independent label. And back in the day, it would have been much, much harder to find independent music.
That's when you get good luck. That's when you get those people that will say, okay, good luck,
Yeah.
It's much better if you're with the big labels, the one that'll get you in there. But it's nowadays you can have a Spotify, YouTube, a SoundCloud, move the music around everywhere. People will listen, people will click, people will view. With social media, people will follow you and find new sources and everything.
Have you found it easy to? No, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. The album specifically talks about social media and being engaged and putting yourself out there so much. But yet again, as someone who's a public figure and is trying to get people to find their music and listen to their music, and you want to reach a lot of people, how do you like feel like you, how do you promote yourself, get out there, get on social media, you know, without feeling like you're, I don't know, doing a job or selling yourself out or something, you know what I mean?
That's the struggle, right? That's where the letting go and the
Yeah, I guess that's basically exactly what we just talked about.
yeah, 'cause, you know, it's hard, you know, like at least for me, and like, you know, a lot of the people I like aspire to be or be like, or like I look up to and things, you know, it's just an interesting time because I feel like, you know, at least in my like more formative years and whatnot, like there was like a little more like mystery and like, you know, you could be like a serious artist in a way, and like that could like really translate. I mean, like look at like the Radioheads or like the Frank Oceans or like
Right.
all these people like that, right? Whereas today it's so much more like, no, we want like you unfiltered all the time as much as you'll give it to us.
Yep.
And I think it's great in a lot of ways. Like I like respect it, but at least for me, you know, at times it's like, you know, it feels unnatural for me to be like, oh, I'm on for the camera all day,
All the
every
time.
day.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to necessarily like preach like you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, or you should, or you know, whatever like that. I think it's all thing, but I think that for anyone, it's just a matter of like, you just have to find your line of like sharing at a comfortable degree, and again, just like, you know, not being afraid to show your personality, because at least, you know, looking at myself objectively and reflecting on it, it's like, yeah, like I do have things to say, and like, you know, I love philosophy and like really like getting into these kind of interesting conversations, but like I'm also a pretty like lighthearted guy when it comes to like push comes to shove. Like I like to just like goof around and fuck off, and like I feel like that's like, you know, I can't like, you got to give the whole picture, right? And,
Right.
you know, maybe not every post or every day is going to be the same, but like, you know, again, just finding that like oneness within yourself, and then like, you know, choosing it. I would never want to at least be the kind of like, I can't imagine myself like every day like
Putting on a show.
Vlogging or something.
Constant, but,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I've come to terms with, all right, you know, this is part of the game, and you know, I'm happy to play. It's fun to, you know, just goof around, and it's also fun to make music that I'll love down the road. So.
If you're gonna play, it's probably best to just get it done like naturally. Like, who's gonna be better than me than myself? Like,
Right.
Yeah,
And that's what people want.
exactly,
People want
and
that.
And again, I think that just also ties into like the album and things like that, of like, you know, finding that, not, you know, I don't know. Again, just the perception part.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Perceiving yourself, and then like that like translating to all of this. So.
Yeah.
Hey, well, thanks. You know, Zuli, this has been a great conversation.
Absolutely.
I think we're gonna wrap it up here. But thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah.
You've been an amazing guest. Stop It God comes out on May 14th on Nurtured Ideas, the label Nurtured Ideas. Zuli, you want to say anything else before we let you go here?
No, that I think you got it. May 14th, Stop It God. The single 2 just came out. If anyone wants to check that out.
Yep, streaming everywhere now.
And yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. It was a pleasure talking.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Zuli.
All right,
Have a good one.
Yeah, have a good one.
take care.
All right.
That was
All right.
awesome.
That was fantastic.
Oh my God.
That was Zuli Jr.
Yes.
Album Stop It God comes out May 14th. That was a fantastic talk with a cool guy. You should absolutely check out the album. Check out the song Blue Sky, Spotify, Apple Music, streaming everywhere, all platforms.
I guarantee it's gonna be worth it.
Yes. And now,
Because with the 3 songs already, like it's
it's fantastic.
yeah, I'm already like, okay, all right,
Yeah, he's got me.
give it to me.
He's got me. Yeah. I love to see you getting the word of mouth out there too. Like,
Oh, yeah.
You know, boots on the